protecting our police, and protecting our communities. According to the FBI, 2021 marked the highest number of law enforcement officers murdered in more than 2 decades. Of the 633 line of duty deaths last year, there were 73 felonious killings. That should come to no surprise to anyone, especially considering the coordinated efforts that were used to undermine our police. As the chance to defund the police got louder, more police officers died and families were left to pick up the pieces. The rise in anti-police sentiment has led to a rash of attacks on police officers nationwide. In 2021 alone, there were 86 premeditated ambush-style attacks. So far in 2022, there have been 35, and this trend doesn't appear to be slowing anytime soon. So how did we get here? In 2014, the Ferguson riots gave rise to a new paradigm of violence against our police under the pretext Black Lives Matter. Although many people from churches and schools and inner city communities just wanted to peacefully protest, radical groups and extremists had a different agenda. It didn't matter whether the police were right or wrong. The Black Lives Matter organization saw an opportunity to exploit high-profile incidents involving the police to fundraise and further their radical agenda. For me, it was undeniable what Black Lives Matter was doing, because they were pulling directly from the Black nationalist playbook, which overlooked violent crime in the Black communities but magnified incidents involving the police. I was very familiar with this tactics because they were similar to the tactics that Black nationalists used in the early 1990s in Houston, Texas, when I grew up as a teenager. The only difference was that Black Lives Matter used social media instead of a bullhorn microphone to amplify their radical message. Some of the rioting tactics used in the early 90s included organizing protests late in the evening and encouraging people to wear dark clothing so they can hide their criminal behavior. They understood that police were limited in their responses and capabilities, so they used diversionary tactics to distract police and cause more damage, looting, violence, and destruction. They also knew how to use media to manipulate the message and turn everyone against the police. I warned about this threat early on, but no one would listen because of the race dynamic. Even after the July 7, 2016 attack in Dallas, Texas, that claimed the lives of 5 police officers, 4 of which were personal friends, no one would listen. By the summer of 2020, Black Lives Matter had escalated into full-blown riots, coinciding with the George Floyd murder. Realizing that police officers were at a disadvantage, other fringe anarchist groups around the country began waging attacks against police officers as well. We saw that especially in cities like Minneapolis, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Cleveland, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, and Kenosha. The riots were uncontrollable. Police agencies didn't have the resources or manpower to deal with the mobs, nor did they know who was friend or foe. Police were essentially forced in an unattainable situation because the rules of engagement were imbalanced. On June 5th, 2020, Washington, D.C. Mayor approved to have the words Black Lives Matter painted on 16th Street leading to the White House. The message ended with defund the police. The defund the police message became the rallying cry for radicals across the country to protest and riot and loot across this country. In response to the defund the police movement, cities and across this nation began cutting budgets in solidarity with the movement. The lack of support for police led to police officers resigning, retiring, and many withdrawing from our police academies. As violent crime spiked in our inner cities, police agencies struggled to maintain their rates. Due to the high attrition rate, police officers were required to work extra shifts to compensate for the lack of manpower. The reduction in resources and low morale increased mental health problems for law enforcement officers. The combination of these factors led to overwhelming stress on these police officers, which resulted in higher suicide rates. The defund the police movement is also responsible for the overcorrection by these progressive DAs in their refusal to prosecute criminals. Police officers nationwide have expressed their frustration with having to arrest the same criminals over and over again because of no bail initiatives. The defund the police movement has done more damage than anyone can imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Pennie. Chief Henninger.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.